Hello boys and girls, good afternoon. Welcome to Critical English for grade 7 to 8. How are we doing today? Shamar?
Good.
Good? Alright, let me see. Akila?
Good.
Alia?
Good.
Yes. So today we're looking at subject and verb agreement. Have you ever heard that term before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? What does it entail? And why do we need it in English?
To agree to the subject to agree with the verb.
Subject to agree with the verb. But why? What do you think, Alia?
I think it needs to agree with the verb, or else the sentence won't make sense.
It will make sense. What about you? Good try. Yeah. What about you, Akila? You don't know? Okay. So what if I say the girls is going? Is there anything wrong with that sentence?
Is going.
Is going? Why? Why is it wrong?
Because it's
Because
It doesn't say where the girl's going.
not necessarily. The girls, so, well, we have markers today. So, the girls is going. Let's add into the market. Market. Is anything wrong with this sentence? Look at it carefully. So subject and verb is not something new. It's something that we've been doing since grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, 4, 5, 6, and even in grade 7, yes? Yeah, so is anything wrong here? So let's look at what the subject is. Could we identify the subject?
the girl.
The girls. All right, so this is our subject. All right, and this is our verb. Yes? But is it agreeing with the subject?
No.
No? Why not? What should we have here?
Are.
We should have are. Why?
Because it's plural.
Because this here is plural. And so when we look at the subject, right? When we look at the verb, and we're going to start today's lesson by understanding the principle, the very underlining principle as we put up for our viewing audience. So the very first thing we want to remember or remind ourselves is that the subject, the verb, must agree with the subject in number. That's our underlining principle. All right? The verb must agree with the subject in number. How does that work? So if we have a plural subject, and the plural subject would refer to what?
More than one.
To more than one. So if we have a plural subject, then we must use the plural form of the verb. All right? And if we have, let's correct the sentence now. So we have the girl is going to the market. And here the sentence is correct, yes? Because we have the girl, which is what? Singular. And this means that it is
One.
one or what? When we talk about singular verb, there's
Single.
something else to hear.
Single.
Yeah, one means it's single. You did it in math. So we're coming down this side.
Negative.
Pardon? Negative? So what does that mean? What does negative mean? It is less than 1. So it can be 0. Now I want you to understand this, right? Because we're looking at rules today, and one of the rule takes this into consideration. All right? So when our subject is 1 or less than 1, which is equal to 0, we must use the singular form of the verb. All right? The underlining principle And we have it up on the screen. Look on the screen, you'll see it. The underlining principle is that the verb must agree with the number of the subject. So we have to identify the subject, identify whether the number of the subject is singular or plural, and then we determine which form of the verb we are going to use. All right? And that is the underlining principle. And everything else, all the other rule, builds on that rule. All right? It's like the foundation of subject and verb agreement. And we need that foundation, because if we don't, then we'll have this. And this here is error in writing. All right? Subject and verb, the subject must agree, the verb must agree with the subject in number. All right? So let's go to the very first rule. You have it on your handout. So you have 2 sheets of paper. One is titled handout and the other is titled activity sheet. Yes? So today we're going to look at 6 rules of the verb. All right? The first 4, they're quite simple, something that we have done before. And so we're more or less revising that. But the last 2 is something that's a little bit more complicated, but it's also very simple when we remember what? The underlining principle. What is the underlining principle? Anyone?
The verb must agree with the subject in number.
Yes, the verb must agree with the subject in number. That's the underlining principle. Okay? Good. So let's go to the first rule. The first rule, this rule deals with singular subject and the singular form of the verb. The rule says what? A singular subject agrees with the singular form of the verb. What that means is that once we have what? How many subjects?
1 subject.
1 subject, the verb must agree. We must use which form of the verb?
The singular.
The singular form. Example, a calypsonian composes several new songs yearly during the carnival season. A calypsonian, how many subjects are we talking about? The number of the subject is 1, and so we must use the singular form of the verb compose, and the singular form of the verb compose is composes. All right? Now, one of the things that you'll notice, and one of the things that I have learned, in fact, one of the things that our teachers have taught us is that when we look at the singular subject and the plural subject, and we look at the verb, we cannot have this here. So you can't have S in both places. Making sense? So if the S is here, then it can't be here. And in this case, S is here, which means that this is 2. So this will not have an S. The subject must not end in S. All right? And the same thing goes for here. We don't have any S here. We have it here. So one does the walking, the other does the talking. All right? Good. We understand? That's a little trick to it. So we can see 2 S's. One is the subject and one in the verb. All right? Good. So that's something to keep at the back of your head. So let's move on to the next. And so we've spoken about these 2 rules, more or less. It says what? Who wants to read? Go ahead and read, Akila. Yes, Akila?
The delegates of the conference arrived at different times.
What's the rule? We're looking at the rule first, and then we go to the example.
When we have 2 or more subjects joined by and, we use the plural verb.
No, Akila, you're going ahead of us. We're at rule 2.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. The plural subject agrees with the plural form of the verb.
Okay, so a plural subject must agree with the plural form of the verb. And in this case, the delegates of the conference, what? Arrive at different times. The delegates, we see the S there. We don't see it at arrive. All right? Which means that arrive there is in the plural form, because when we talk about delegates, are we talking about one? No, we're talking about more than one. So the subject is plural. All right? We understand those two so far?
Yes.
All right. So here is where, remember, we must always keep in the back of our head the underlining principle. And what's the underlining principle?
The verb must agree with the subject in number.
Very good. The verb must agree with the subject in number. All right. So let's talk about rule 3. 2 or more subjects. When we have 2 or more subjects joined by coordinating conjunction and, we use the plural form of the verb. Why? Let's look at the example. The police officer and the fire officer are unsure about the cause of the fire. The sentence is correct as it is. Yes? Why?
Because it's
Two subjects. All right? Let's identify the subjects. Who are the subjects?
The
Police officer, 1.
the fire officer.
Fire officer, 1. When we put them together, we get 2, which means that our subject is what? Plural. And so we have to use the plural form of the verb. See how the underlining principle is working? All right? Example. So those 3 are more or less easy. All right, so we're moving on. We're moving into a little bit of technical aspect. This one says subjects joined by either or neither nor. When 2 subjects are joined by either or neither nor, the verb agrees with the part of the subject nearest to it. What's the rule? The verb agrees with the part of the subject nearest to it. Example, neither the promoter nor the boxers expected a massive audience. Which is the subject that is closest to the verb? Promoter. Look at the sentence. Neither the promoter. What is the verb? Let's try to identify the verb first of all. What's the verb?
No.
The verb. Yes? Quickly. Akila? Alio? Neither the promoter nor the boxers expect a massive audience. What's the action?
Is it expect?
Expect, yes. So which of the subject is closest to the verb expect?
Boxers.
Boxers, and in this case, is boxers singular or plural? Plural. So it means that we must use the plural form of the verb. So this rule says that the verb must agree with the part of the subject nearest to it. So we're looking for the verb the subject that comes after or nor. In this case, when we have either or, we're looking for the verb closest to or. When we have neither nor, we're looking for the verb closest to nor. We're seeing that? Yes?
Yes.
And in this case, the promoter is singular, but we're not taking the promoter into consideration because that is farthest from the verb. The subject that we are considering is the one closest to the verb. And in this case, it's the boxers. All right? Making sense?
Yes.
Kayla?
Yes.
Alia?
Yes.
Shamar?
Yes.
We good? All right. So we're going to see how much we've learned just now. Good. So remember I was telling you about how it gets a little bit complicated? But these are the things that we have to do so that we can improve our writing. Now this one says singular or plural noun phrase. When a singular noun phrase is linked to another noun phrase by preposition or prepositional phrases such as with, as well as, and in addition to the verb, the verb that follow is singular. So we have a singular noun phrase and it's linked by a noun phrase by the preposition or prepositional phrase, and we are given an example of what those prepositional phrases or preposition can be. All right? Or if it is a plural phrase, then the verb that follow is plural. Now this looks a little technical, yes? Look at the example. It looks a little technical. The Prime Minister as well as several cabinet members. Let's look at the first one. The Prime Minister as well as several cabinet members intends to hold a press conference on several important matters. Now let's look at it. The Prime Minister is a noun phrase, all right? It's a noun phrase, and that's the noun phrase in the sentence. It's also linked by another phrase, another noun phrase, and it's linked by with a prepositional phrase as well as, okay, as well as several cabinet ministers. Now the trick in this one is to ensure that we identify what the subject is. When we talk about what the subject is what? Who or what does the action of the verb. Now, who intends to hold a press conference on several important matters?
The Prime Minister or
The
the Cabinet member.
Prime Minister. Now, the phrase as well as several ministers, we can take that out. All right? That phrase there is added to help add clarity. So phrases are there to add clarity, to modify, and we're going to go into that when we come to look at phrases and clause. All right? But for the purpose of this lesson, the Prime Minister, which is the noun phrase, is singular. All right? So the sentence is not talking about as well as several ministers. That's an extension of the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister in this case is what? Singular or plural?
Singular.
It's singular, and so we must use the singular form of the verb. Hence, the use of intends. Following, Akila? As against the next example, cabinet members along with the Prime Minister intend cabinet members along with the prime. So the structure of the sentence was changed this time to make what? To make the subject singular or plural?
Plural.
Plural, because we're talking about cabinet ministers, more than one. Intend to hold a press conference on several important matters. So in this case, we have to identify what is the subject, one, and see whether we have phrases, noun phrase in the sentence, which is usually linked by what? Preposition. So look at the two phrases that we have, as well as several cabinet ministers, and then along with the Prime Minister. Both of those begin with what? Prepositions. All right? And if we take out those, we're able to see the connection between the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister is singular, so he intends. Cabinet members, plural, intend. All right? Are we seeing those?
Yes, miss.
Yes? All right. And finally, we're moving on to the final one. Remember I was telling you about the 0, 1 or 0? Yes?
Yeah.
And this is where that principle will apply. Neither followed by plural noun or pronoun. All right? So that's the rule. The rule we're looking at, neither followed by plural noun or pronoun. when neither is followed by a plural noun or pronoun, the singular form of the verb is used. Let's look at the example. Neither of the two boys was present when the incident occurred. What does that tell us? Neither of the two boys. Was anyone there?
No.
No. So how many persons we are counting for? No one is equivalent to what?
0.
0. So it means that our subject must be singular. Yes?
Yes.
Our subject is singular, neither of the two boys. But you have two boys there. But in this case, no one was present. And so, because we have no one, it's equivalent to 0, which means that our subject is singular. And so we must use the singular form of the verb. All right? Good. So let's see how much you would have comprehend. You have 8 questions, and I'm going to give you some time. The instruction says to select the appropriate verb form from the options in bracket to complete each of the following sentences. All right, remember to look back to your rule so that we can discuss why your answer is right or why it's not correct. And I'm hoping that we can get them all correct. So I'm going to give you 4 minutes.
Excuse me, miss. It is supposed to have to from.
Pardon?
What is supposed to have to from?
Verb form. Form from the options in the bracket to complete each of the following sentences.
Okay.
So you're just underlining which of the verb forms in the bracket is correct to complete the sentence. All right? Almost done. All right, we should be wrapping up now. Are we done? Shamar? Finish? All right, good. So let's go through the answers. So, who wants to go first? So, we'll go around. Yes. Shamar, what do you have? Number 1?
The judge
Mm-hmm.
come out together with the lawyers and their clients
Mm-hmm.
is looking closely
Mm-hmm.
at the exhibits produced by the police officer in the terrorism case.
Good. The judge, together with the lawyers and their clients, is looking. Why is that correct? Because when we look at this, we're talking about the rule that speaks to the noun phrase. And in this case, the noun phrase is what? The judge, right? It's linked with another noun phrase together with the lawyers and their client, but it's not talking about the lawyers and the client. The emphasis is in what? The judge is looking closely. All right? So we apply which rule? Which rule are we applying there? Rule which? Rule 5? Yes, rule 5. So we're applying rule 5 to that question. Question 2. Akila, what do you have?
Neither of the parents was present to discuss the incident of equipment damaged by the children.
Rule, which rule? Rule 6. Yes? Neither. Neither of the parents, which equates to what? 0. Nobody was there. Yes? Okay. And then we move on to 3. The mason, work or works?
Work.
Alia.
Works.
Works, correct. Either Herbert or we. What? Is or are? Are. Yes, correct. Closest to the subject. The subject closest to the verb is we, and we accounts for the plurality of the verb of the subject. Yes. Jerry and Gary are correct. The villagers has or have? Have, correct. There's something, many opportunities available to you in this form.
They are.
Are, yes. Why? Because we're talking about more than one opportunities. The subject there is opportunities. The student council, I'm hoping that we all can get this one right. The student council, consisting of 40 members, something, decision-making role in the school. Has or have? Have. What do you have, Akila? Has. Alia? Have? Has. So when we're looking at this one here, the student council, how many? How many things, Shamar? Singular, plural?
Singular.
The student council, one body, right? Consisting of 40 members, right? The noun phrase consisting of 40 members tells us about the student council, but the student council is one, and so the answer is has. All right, so today we've looked at, did everyone, well, Shamari got that one wrong. Better luck next time. And we're working on that. So we're going to go back and we're going to peruse, because you have it in front of you. Peruse the rules. Those are the first 6 rules to subject and verb agreement. They play an essential role. But at the end of the day, the underlining principle is what? Akila. What is the underlining principle? The principle that guides everything, that helps us to decode all of these other rules.
The verb.
The verb. Continue, Shamar. The verb. Must agree. Akila.
With the subject in number.
The verb must agree with the subject in number. And so if the subject, the number of the subject is 1 or what? Because we have instances where it's 1 or what? 0. 1 or less than 1, it's singular. And when it is 2 or more, it is plural. And so we must use the plural form of the verb when we have a plural subject. And we must use the what? What form of the verb if we have a singular subject? Singular form of the verb. And that is it for today. Thank you very much, guys. I have your stickers and I will get them right to you. Thank you so much for staying with us today. Please stay tuned for mathematics coming up shortly. to enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good afternoon, students, and welcome to Critical Mathematics for grade 7 and 8. So we hope that you enjoy your English session, and now we're heading into mathematics. Now, first of all, I would like you to do something for me. Could you please, I'm sharing my screen. So I'm going to ask you to pick an item. You have 1, 2, 3, 4. Pick one. Akila.
Lollipop.
Lollipop. All right. Please remember that. Shamar.
Biscuit.
Biscuit. And Aliyah.
Mini burger.
Mini burgers. Okay. Good. So what you're going to do for me? Lollipops. Please hold this. Make a note of it. We have biscuits. Please make a note of your biscuits. And we have mini burgers. Right. So remember the last class when we started, we were looking at algebra. And we don't have to use the English sentence, but we can break it down mathematically. Instead of saying FOUR 4, we can just write the number 4, right? And instead of saying 5 apples, we can say what?
5A.
5A, because the A would signify that we're talking about the apples. Good. So, please make a note of what you have there, and you will tell me what you have mathematically. Yes, Akila?
2 lollipops.
2 lollipops. How would you write it mathematically?
2p.
2p? what would you write? All right, we're coming. Think. Take your time. Shamar, what would you write?
Is it continuous pack or
Tell me mathematically, how would you write it?
2p?
2p?
8b?
All right. I'm coming back. Think a little more. Alia.
3 MB.
3
MB.
MB. All right. Why are you saying 3 MB?
Because I have 3 mini burgers.
Because you have 3 mini burgers. So you're saying 3 MB. Fair enough. You ready for me? Yes?
Oh, 2L.
2L. So you have 2 lollipops. 2L. And Shamar, you have?
2b?
2B. So you have 2 biscuits. Agree? Now, could you please put all of those things together, the items together? Shamar, tell me what you have there. Mathematically?
Is you're adding it?
You're telling me.
2l plus
You have 2L plus
2b plus
2B plus
3mb
3MB.
plus 3mb.
Alia, do you agree?
Yes.
Sure? All right. Akila, do you agree?
Yeah.
All right. So, according to Shamar, you have 2 L's, 2 B's, and 2 MB. Right? Why you're adding?
It's because you're putting them together.
You're adding because you're summing it together. Good. Fair enough. So, when you put them together, why didn't you just have 7 of something?
It's because they're not equal.
They're not equal, Akila. Why didn't you just add it and say 7 of something?
Write the equation first before answering.
Pardon me?
Write the equation first before giving the answer.
Okay. All right, you're getting smart. Yes, Alia?
Because they're not all the same.
Because they're not all the same. They are different items. So you're adding different items. So all of the items in groups might have a different meaning or a different term. Right? So as we are saying, the last class we did algebra. We're looking at algebraic terms and algebraic expression. Right? So you have your items there. You realize that you could not have added all and just give me one total, but you give the total in a summing up of something. Right? We understand? All right. Well, let's continue for the afternoon. My screen should be up. All right then. Let me just get it to change a little. Not sure why it's giving me that problem. All right, in a few I'll be back to the screen. These things do happen. So, as we move on, we're looking at the different algebraic terms, and there are few terms or words that we need to know when we are doing algebra. We have, first of all, we have coefficient. For the coefficient, I need to just show you a bit just now. All right. screen? Good. So we have the coefficient, and in simple terms, in simple words, in a simple sentence, we can say the coefficient is any number standing with a letter. Any number that you see standing with a letter, we call that the coefficient. And according to the example, there on your left, you would see you have 5 with a letter. So the number in front of the letter is what we would call the coefficient. Do we understand that?
Yes, yes.
Sure? Good. So if you see in anywhere you see in mathematics, you see a number and a letter standing together, the number in front of that letter is the coefficient. And also you might sometimes, some persons write the number behind. Nothing is wrong with that, as long they're together and there is no sign in between it, except for a multiplication sign, right? And then we have variable. That basically is the letter that you see in the expression. You have the number and you have a letter. As long as you see a letter, that will be called the variable. Then we have the constant. Any number standing alone. It would have no letter standing next to it. It will just be by itself. And all of those things now will create the expression. All of the terms, the coefficient with the variable and the constant, that will create the expression. According to the example you're seeing there, also you have an expression on your left and an expression on your right. Separated by? What is it separated by?
The equal sign.
The equal sign. Now, when the equal sign is included, it now becomes an equation. But equation, we'll move on to that in the other lesson. All right? So we're looking at the basic part of it, the expression. Let's move on. Do we understand the coefficient, the variable, and the constant?
Yes.
So if you're asked to identify them, would you be able to do that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now my screen is running ahead of me now. It's trying to play with me. Yep. Right, so in simple words, an algebraic expression is, in simple words, referred to the use of the basic operation, letters, and numbers without an equal sign. An algebra expression is not an equation. The expression is not an equation, but when there is an equal sign, then the equation will be formed. Please, I'm not sure why technology can be so complicated at times and why it is running ahead of me. Let's look at a more extensive expression where we have 5x cubed. The cube, that little tree that is floating at the top of the last class when we were talking about a square, that is called a degree or the power, right? And you have several other meanings that you can get for it. We have also the coefficient where it is showing you the number of coefficients that you can find in that basic expression there. We have the constant where we have the one that is standing by itself. And Shamar, could you say in terms of the grouping? Can you identify the groups?
It's like groups you mean, like miss, like how you would add it up?
Okay. All right, it's just to get your attention a little. The groups there, we're talking about the terms. If you notice, in the yellow, they're showing you that you have four different terms there. We have the 5x cubed, the 7xy, the 3x, and the 9. So we have four different terms because all of them, just like the items that we have there, they are different in some way. Right? You think we following here? Sure? So first thing we look for to identify the coefficient, the variable, the constants, or the expression, we look to find how many terms they have, and then we can group those terms. When we start grouping those terms, then we are moving on to another aspect of the topic. Good, so let's go. Please stop, please stop. Yes? It's still running ahead of me. All right, so let's try these. Take a note of the first one. Write the variables and constants used in each expression. So each of you will take one, and then you will give me the answer in a minute or so.
Right, yeah.
Yes. Akila, which one you writing? First one. Shamar, pick one.
Second one, miss.
Two, number two. And Alia?
The last one.
Okay, number two at the bottom. Fair enough. You can write a little bigger than that, you know. You don't have to write so tiny.
Mrs. Osman, right?
So tiny? Oh my. Do you study in the evening? Have good eyes. You ready for you to give me the answers? So number one, you're identifying the variables and the constants. Any answer for me? If anyone is ready before Akila, you can go ahead, share your answers. Okay, Akila. Variables are?
X and Y.
X and Y. All right. I'm going to say something. I'm not going to say it now, but when everybody give the answer. Okay, fair enough. X and Y, your constants?
3 and 4.
3 and 4. All right. I'll take that for now. Shamar, your variables?
The variables, miss, M and 2.
M and 2?
M and the 2 above.
Okay, M square.
Yes, miss.
Okay. And that's all? And your constants?
Miss 6.
6. Finish there?
Yes, miss.
All right. Alia. Your coefficient?
2.
You're saying 2? Okay, that's all?
And 17.
2 and 17. Okay, the coefficient for B would be which one?
2.
2. And the coefficient for C?
17.
17. All right. Now, most persons were correct just a little bit that we should have included. Your constant, your variable, your coefficient, whatever it is, takes the sign that is standing in front of it, addition or subtraction sign. So, your variables now would be what? Akila.
X and negative Y.
X and negative Y. And Shamar, your constant would be -6. And your variable, remember, is only the letter, not the power or the degree or the exponent. All right, just the letter. So let's all look at the other one on your left, number 1. At the bottom, the coefficient of m. Akila, coefficient of m is?
Two.
Let me speak louder.
-4 and 2.
-4 and 2. Everybody agree or disagree?
Disagree.
Disagree? What's the coefficient of m?
+2.
+2. Shamar?
Miss, I agree with Akila.
You agree with Akila. All right. Now, remember, they're asking for the coefficient of m. And if you notice at the bottom also, they have the coefficient of m squared. Right? So be conscious of that. So the coefficient of m is 2. The coefficient of n square, Shamar?
-4.
N square.
7. +7.
+7. And Akila? The coefficient of m square is?
-4.
-4. Right? So those are the only things that the questions would have asked you for. But you need to know how to identify your coefficient, your variable, your constants. Good? In your terms that make up the expression. Let's continue. Okay, I am going to the other slide. The other slide, take it easy. Nope. All right. So let's look at this aspect of it. So we would have learned about the terms, and we would have learned from the introductory aspect with the items that the biscuit would be different from the lollipop, and that would be different from the mini burger, right? And they are grouped with the like terms, with the like items. So the first example, we have circled the like terms. If you notice, we have 2x circled, we have -3x circled, and we have 3x and 7x circled. What is common in all of them?
Miss, they all have the x.
They all have the x. Anything else? Basically, they all have the x. If they don't have a number, nothing is wrong. But they have that x standing alone. The x with nothing else added to it. And the number that is with it in front, which we call the coefficient. Good. So let's look at number 2. We have the first one, you have 11h. You have gh squared, 4 hg, 8gh squared, -gh squared, and 2g. So if you're to group the like terms quickly in a few seconds, find the items that you will group together for me for number 2. If you can identify with them, just raise your hands. Shamar? Okay, Shamar. What would you group?
GH and the 2 degree, 8 GH and the 2 degree, and -GH with the 2 degree.
So you're grouping GH squared, 8 GH squared, negative GH squared. Alia, do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
You agree or you're not too sure?
Not too sure.
Not too sure. Thank you, honesty. You're not too sure. Akila? Agree or disagree or not too sure?
Not too sure.
Not too sure. Good. Now remember, look at the items there. Put the items together. Shuffle them together. Just shuffle it together. Mix it up. Mix it up. Mix it up properly. Okay. Pick out 2 similar items. 2 items of the same thing. Of the same name. Agree with that? Why didn't you pick out a biscuit and a lollipop?
It's because they're not the same.
They're different, right? So, pick out another 2 somebody. I'm not going to even call a name. Yes. So what you have there?
2 lollipops.
2 lollipops, not a biscuit and a lollipop, right? Good. So going back to our screen. Let's look back at our screen. (11H). Any other item in the line, number 2 line, is similar or the same as 11H? Say, for instance, 11 hats. Are there any other hats? Are there 4 hats, 8 hats, 2 hats? Are there any other? What about 2 goats? Are there any other goats alone? Huh? No. So, as Shamar would have said, GH squared is like terms with 8GH squared because it's 8 of the same thing. And it's also alike with negative GH squared because it's like you're owing that goes. You're owing that goes there. GH. Right? Let's look at number 3. We have 3MN, 5MN, 6M, negative MN, negative 2MN, and 4MN. Aliyah, what are your similar terms there?
3MN,
3MN,
5MN,
5MN,
negative MN,
negative MN,
negative 2MN,
negative 2MM,
and 4MN.
and 4MN. Agree?
Yes, miss.
Agree, everyone?
Yes.
Yes. You understand it a little better now?
Yes, miss.
All right, so over to Akila. Last one. A square B, 10. A square B square C. 2A square B square C. B square C and A square C. What are your common terms? Or your similar terms or your like terms?
Square, B square, and C.
A square B, that's what you're saying?
Oh, yeah. A square, B square, C, and 2A square, B square, C.
Okay. Shamar, do you agree?
Yes, I'm not too sure.
Not too sure? And Aliyah, do you agree
Yes, miss.
with her? All right. If you look at those terms, all of them either have something more or something less. Agree?
Yes, miss.
But the one that you have said, A square B square C and 2A square B square C are the only 2 that have similar items with with a coefficient, nothing is wrong with that. So those two are the two common ones. Right, so in terms of the terms, are we okay with the terms?
Yes, miss.
Okay, so let's go to the last piece. Now that we know the terms, we know the coefficient, we know the variables, and we know the constants, we want to group these like terms. For the first one, everybody will take one. Akila, number 1. Shamar, number 2. And Alia, number 3. I'll take number 4. So, anybody ready?
So you're working it.
Yes, you're grouping them. So you're going to tell me what terms you're going to group together. Do you want me to do my own first? Okay. Alia, Akila, sorry. We have 5m minus 8n plus m plus 2n minus 2m. So I'm going to group the like terms by, I'm going to take 5m plus m minus 2m. If we're seeing that, and then I'm going to use minus 8n plus 2n. We're not going to work it further than that because that will be going on to the other lesson. So we're just grouping them. 5m plus m minus 3m because the sign in front takes precedence. And we have minus 8n plus 2n. It's like we have some mangoes and some nuts. Right? We have 5 mangoes and we owe two mangoes to someone, and we also have another mango hiding somewhere else. So Shamar, I'll take your answer for number 2.
It's a -3.
Okay, okay, you don't have to work it out. Tell me how you group it.
Miss, since there's a minus sign, to me, the numbers you can, if you subtract, you're going to negative, you get a -3, and I got the 3 of them because to me, if you subtract the 8, you subtract and the...
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
But remember, we're just working on grouping it. And luckily for you, your own is grouped already because you have nothing else to do with it. That's all I need to know. Right? Your own is grouped, so you don't have anything to do. Yes, Alia.
I have 3u with u.
3u, you just, with u alone?
Without negative.
With negative u. So it's 3u minus u and
-11 with
-11
with
plus 6. So that is your group. Good. And Akila?
Y and positive Y, 2y.
Y. Oh, positive y
And Y.
and
Wait, and 2y.
just 2y.
Negative
Negative 2y and
2x and positive x.
2x and 2x plus x.
And 3 and -2.
Just 3.
-3.
-3 minus 2. So your terms, you had 3 different things to group. Some persons had 2. Shamar didn't have anything to do, right? So just take note of your constants, your variables, your coefficients, your different terms that you have, and grouping them. Because for the next lesson, we are moving on to the addition and subtraction of your algebraic expression. Right? So whatever we do from day 1 of the sessions, please take note of them, the directive numbers, your positive and negative when you're putting them together. Now we're into algebra. You're still keeping those memories and what you would have learned in the different aspects and the different topics, so that moving on, you can take it with you. Right? Note, you would have earned your snack that you asked, that you would have had preference over today. So the persons who would have ask for the lollipop, please take your lollipops. The biscuits, please take your biscuits. And the mini burgers, you can have your mini burgers. So just do enjoy. Have a blessed afternoon, and we hope to see you next session, next week, week 4, for the other part of your lessons. Good afternoon. Do enjoy.